Okay, we are Group C for Creative, and this is the Great Debate video discussion. And our members, there are names, and we will do a quick introduction.
Hi, I'm Brandy Diltz, and I'm a 7th grade math teacher in Derby, Kansas.
Hi, I'm Kara Stuckey. I teach middle school math in Singapore.
And I am Steve Maltby, and I teach math, science, and spelling at the 6th grade level in Rossville. Okay, so the first part of the discussion, we will take a look at the Instructional Educational Technology timeline. What did you two think of the timeline?
You know, one of the things I noticed that I hadn't really thought about was when distance education started. Looking at that timeline, I think it was actually in the 1850s by post, and that was kind of surprising to me.
Yeah, you would think it would be more recent for something like that to have started than so long ago. You don't really think about it in that way other than just what we currently see it as.
That's kind of funny because that really stuck out to me as well.
Did it?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I just never really thought about the U.S. Postal Service being part of it, but I guess in every way it would be. It's kind of like when to me, it's almost like we almost don't think of email as, advanced technology, but in a sense it is and qualifies as it. But was there anything else that stuck out? I thought that was it Socrates? Is that the one that said that you shouldn't write things down? I think that was one of the first blocks there. He mentioned that didn't believe in writing things down because it didn't allow you to memorize things as much. It was something along those lines.
I saw that it diminishes your memory. I think that's what it's.
Yeah.
That seems odd because now we want to have people write things down to try to remember them.
Right. And then, I've actually seen, positive research for note taking, because you're seeing it visually, you're writing it, you're feeling it, you're hearing it. And yet that was kind of looked down upon kind of early on. Okay. Did anything else really stick out at all, or?
Not really.
Okay.
I think one other thing, as the timeline progressed, how it, as it came closer into the 2000s, it was almost like each year there was something different happening, and how it's just rapidly progressing now, which makes sense.
Right. Yeah, it really doubled there. And then to look back to just how long it was, I think the World Wide Web was, I think on the picture here was 1989. It just doesn't seem like it was, I don't know, to me it just seems like it was more in the late 90s almost, but being in a rural area, we didn't get it till later on anyway, but it's interesting to look at the dates when the things popped up.
I don't remember having the World Wide Web in 1989. I don't remember using it until late 90s, like you said.
Right.
Yeah, same for me too.
Okay. All right. What about the videos that we watched? Let's see, Brandy, did you have a good one?
I watched the Marshall McLuhan from 1967 first. It was kind of odd. He kept talking about Canadians, and
I watched that
a
one
little bit lost, but it was interesting. I thought it interesting that he was talking about how showing parts of the war on TV would make people feel it more rather than seeing it in pictures. And then I thought it was interesting about him saying that Canadians were stuck in the 19th century and then they were just going to skip all the way to the 21st. So it was a strange video.
Yeah, it was. It was interesting what he said about being Canadian, but the idea that they were able to look at the rest of the world and kind of almost make judgments about how they were using media because they weren't engaging in it. And so they were able to better judge what was good and what was bad.
Right.
That was interesting.
Yeah.
And say I watched the just the introduction part, the 22-minute one, and it was pretty interesting. He seemed very intelligent. It'd be, I think, all I was thinking is it'd be really hard to have a conversation with him. I think he'd be above.
Yeah. Even just watching his interview I seemed a little lost in it.
And well, there was a gentleman that was talking about him and just how he basically didn't dive into technology or anything, but he watched his kids and family members and how they interacted with it, and basically seemed like he did his best just to stand back and observe more than anything, which I would find challenging. I don't see how you can, like, say, the events of 9/11. That would be hard to just sit back and watch other people, how they react.
Yeah.
Everybody was glued to the TV. So, anything else on videos?
I watched the one about the kids nowadays that had to go back and use technology from the 80s. That was kind of interesting just to watch them try to figure out how to use a cassette player, and they gave them a big Commodore computer and she couldn't figure out how to work it at first, but they actually picked it up really quickly, and it was just interesting to watch them try to use that stuff.
That's funny. It's funny actually that our one of our tech people at my work, she has some kids that are younger, and they had a bunch of kids over, and they pulled out a rotary phone, and they tried to explain to the kids how it worked, and one of my sixth graders was there, and it took him, they timed him, it took him 40 minutes to figure out how to dial a complete number.
Oh my gosh. That's funny.
Wow.
Even, they'd say you have to go all the way around and then let it go, and it was just interesting.
Yeah,
it
that
is.
is
Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry. That's kind of funny. My daughter, it's been a couple months ago, she's 13, and she said, "Mom, it'd be really cool to have one of those phones with a big long cord that you had to attach to the wall." I'm like, "No, it's not cool." I'm like, "That's really old. We tried to get away from those."
That's funny.
And I was gonna say, it's interesting how things we grew up with, it just makes sense to us, but then you wonder what's it gonna be like in 30, 40, 50 years for the technology we have, which we feel like so advanced. I can't even imagine what it's gonna be like.
Yeah, it's amazing how quick it's changing. Well, we can move on to see the media debate articles. Let's see. Cara, did you have an article that was of interest or interesting?
Yes, I read the one, The Medium is the Message. At first I was reading it. I don't know if either of you guys looked at that one. But first I'm like, what is this saying? I didn't really understand it. But as I started to read it more, it made sense to me. And I'm like, this does fit. So basically the idea is, as all of these technologies are happening and the world's changing, you have to look at the effects and the changes it's causing in society to determine if that medium is a good thing, is beneficial. That's kind of the basic idea.
Okay.
I just went through the EduWiki that had the great debate on it, just reading through their point of views and how the first guy, I'm trying to remember his name, Clark, I think he was the first one.
Yes, Clark.
And how he was just saying that if it was just technology that was just replacing something that you could do with something else, then it wasn't really of value to education. So that's the one I read.
Okay. And I read the Clark, is it Kazuma? We're going to slaughter this. I'm going to slaughter it. Debate in the 21st century, and basically explain Clark's views and Kazuma's views, and very similar to everything that was in the reading that was mentioned. So, and we can go ahead and move on to those then.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So these two, Richard and Robert, debated, and Richard Clark's media do not influence learning under any circumstance. It is merely the vehicle whereby instruction is delivered and has no influence or instruction. Just like the truck used to deliver goods to a store has no influence on the groceries it carries. And Cosma concluded that various media have distinct symbol systems and processing capabilities that can complement those of the learner and produce a unique experience. Did that pretty much wrap up what you two found about their kind of philosophies?
Yes.
Okay. So where do we stand in their arguments? Brandy, would you like to start?
Sure. I kind of see valid points in both of them because with the first one, I think that if you're just using technology just to replace something that you can do with something else, like you're taking notes on an iPad when you can just do it on paper and pencil, I don't see that it does add that much value. But if you're using technology as part of creating something as a different process that you can't do without technology, then I think it does help in the educational process. So I can kind of see both points of view on this.
Okay. Kara?
Yeah, I agree. I was thinking the same thing. It depends how you're using the medium. If, like you said, if you're just replacing what could be done in another means, then it's not really adding value. But you can add value through technology. I do feel like technology does have an impact on student learning, but there's not a one fix for everything. There's not one device or one app that's going to make, the best learning for every student. And so that's where the teacher comes into play, that the teacher can help decide what medium is going to be best for what students and for what project or what assignment you're doing.
Right. And I see merits to both, that it shouldn't just be replaced just for the sake of using it. And then on the flip side, I think media does have value. I was just kind of thinking of some things. As I mentioned earlier, 10 years from now, in a history class for high schoolers, you can talk about the events of 9/11, but if they see video of that, that's going to be more impactful. Where would we be if we didn't get to hear, Martin Luther King's "I Have a Dream" speech? If we just read it, that would be one thing, but to hear him giving it, I think that takes it to another level. But then on the flip side, sometimes we can jump to technology sometimes, and it can actually kind of limit creativity. If we just here's an image, look at it, as opposed to telling them the story and letting them kind of create the image first sometimes.
Right. I agree.
The only big thing I had about the Clark's was the truck. I think the truck that carries the groceries is very important. I want my eggs carried in a refrigerated truck.
I didn't think about it that way, but yeah.
So I think the truck can be very crucial as well.
Yes, it can.
So,
but have anything else on?
This is a random side note, but they don't actually refrigerate eggs in Asia. Just so you know. So, yeah.
That's odd.
They don't.
Topic, but
it's actually, yeah. My sister got chickens, and they, I guess they can keep them out as long as they're not refrigerated to begin with. They can stay out on the table.
Mm-hmm.
So, like when you see the little plastic eggs in the basket in farmhouses and stuff as decoration, that was actually how they kept them at room temperature.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe I should have went with milk and cottage cheese.
There you go. That's a good one.
That's funny.
But well, do we have anything else on our information between these two?
I don't think so.
I guess there was one other thing that I read about, and it talked about simulation and how that can be a great tool for learning, that maybe a textbook or other kind of medium wouldn't really be able to help a student learn. So like, for example, a pilot and being able to use a simulation. So that's an example where you can see it does really have an effect on learning.
Right.
I think I saw something about that. Was it the comment of, would you rather have a pilot that's read the manual
Yes.
for 100 hours or spend 100 hours in the simulator?
Yes. And I thought that actually makes sense. That's a good argument.
That does. And I mean, you can take that from, there to doctors, medical doctors performing procedures and all that. I mean, I think media, I think the positives usually outweigh the negatives.
Right.
Especially when kind of opening the world up. I've taught in 2 districts, and they all have some students in the lower economic status, I guess you could say, and some of them may never leave the county, but technology allows them to see the world.
Right.
So in that case, I think it can be very powerful.
I agree.
So do we have any more on that?
I think so.
All righty.
I think I'm good.
All right. And here are our awesome references.